All right, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started to begin our lecture, Clicker Training for Cats with Cat Happy Consulting, Jamie Johnson. And we're really excited to have you all here today. My name is Amelia Curtis. I'm the Education Manager at San Diego Humane Society. I've been working here for about 10 years, and I think this is probably one of my favorite pet talk topics because I'm a big cat fan, and I also did clicker train my cat a little bit. I taught him to sit, stand on his hind legs, and do a wave. So it was a lot of fun doing that. So I always enjoy this lecture and learning some new things. So we are recording the lecture today. We will be sending a link to the recording at the end. So for anyone who joins us late, or if someone that you know wasn't able to attend, or if there's material you'd like to revisit, you will be able to see that when we share the link, and it will go out to everyone who registered for the program tonight. I'm just going to go over a couple of fun things that are coming up with San Diego Humane Society, and then I'll do a couple housekeeping things before we get started. So I'm going to share my screen here. All right, can everybody see my screen? Can you see it, Jamie? Yep, okay. So that means that probably everybody can see it. So at San Diego Humane Society, we have a great new page on our website called Events. So it's just sdhumane.org/events. And if you scroll down, you can see some fun things coming up. And we now have a fun community engagement section. So you can see some of the cool things that are coming up in the next months. And we have our clicker for cats today. Our next Wake Up with Wildlife will be on November 7th, and it'll be about raptors. So that will also be in the same virtual format. We do charge a $5 fee for our Wake Up with Wildlife program. So feel free to check out anything here. We also list any fun youth programs coming up, like our Humane at Home or birthday celebrations. And then I wanted to highlight, since we are in the month of October, which is a really fun month, we have lots of events going on all over San Diego, and we thought it would be fun to do a Dia de los Muertos altar making workshop. And so we are working with an organization called Chicanista Boutique. And you can see register, it's $25. It will be over Zoom. And then you will make an altar for any pets that you have had that have passed. So feel free to check that out on our calendar, and I'll also send a link for that. And then I wanted to highlight, of course, some cute kitties that we have available for adoption. I always love to highlight animals that have been in our care for a while. So this is Audie, and she is a long-term resident, and she's just an older girl. She's actually a rag doll, which is quite special to find in a shelter, but she's really beautiful, and she's 12 years old. So she is just looking for a home that would love to have a senior cat. And another one here, Luna, who is younger. She's a year old, and she just has a little bit of a kidney issue. So she will need medical consideration in her future. So she is really just a beautiful and very happy kitty. So those are the things I wanted to highlight. I will share all of that fun stuff back in my email when I do our email afterwards with our link to the lecture tonight as well. So then just a few housekeeping items tonight. Because we are in a webinar format, we're going to ask that you keep questions to the end and use the Q&A. So you should see an option at the bottom that says Q&A, and if you're able to put your questions there at the end, we will answer them the best we can, and we will be taking extra questions via email. So I'll share my email at the end with anyone who maybe thinks of something towards the end, or if we didn't get to your question. So I wanted to give that as an opportunity. And then if you can, I know we're all cat people, so we like to talk about our cats, but if you can keep the questions more basic for everyone to benefit from the answer, that would be great, instead of going into a lot of detail about the specific issues of your kitty cat. And we will do our best to be able to make a broad answer to answer everybody so that they can benefit from that. And I think that's it. So if you want to reach out to me at all, I'll be monitoring the chat during the lecture as Jamie speaks. So feel free if you have anything you want to mention, or if people just want to talk about their cats, maybe you could chit chat there about it and people can share with each other if you like. We're going to go ahead and start off with a poll. And we're going to do a poll about your past training with your cats, and if you have taught a trick before or a behavior. So if you can answer, we'll give you guys about a minute to go ahead and answer there.
Oh, that's cool that we can see it live.
Yeah.
New features to me.
This is also my first time using the poll, so this is very exciting. Looks like
I know, it's so exciting. Most people are excited to learn and are brand new to this. And it looks like out of the ones you listed, not surprisingly, sit is up there. Although I would have thought, well, I'm wondering if high five will surpass.
So I'll close the poll in 10 seconds. We have 10 more seconds to answer the poll, and then we'll go ahead and share. All right. And can you see the results there, everyone? I hope you can see that. If you can't, I'll share it out loud. We had 12% have taught sit, 9% have taught a high five. No one has taught a spin. We have 6% a target, 18% others, so maybe some new tricks we will maybe get to learn about at some point if anyone has questions about those. And then the majority of people, 56%, have not yet clicker trained their cat and they can't wait. So we will close that poll out, and I'm going to give it away to Jamie, who has a really exciting lecture for you all this evening. Again, hold on to those questions for the Q&A. If you have just little things you want to share, feel free to use the chat for that, and I'll monitor it for if there's any specific requests. So thank you guys so much, and enjoy.
Okay, so I'm just screen sharing. Who can share? Oh, okay. I am trying to screen share and I'm getting an interesting message still. Oh, there we go. Now it's working. Let's go here. Can you see it, Amelia? Yep. Yeah. Can you see and hear me? I can't see you anymore. Can you give me a verbal confirmation? I can't hear you still, but I'm assuming it's working. So, alrighty. So thank you for being here. We are going to be discussing clicker training 101, really. So basics, clicker training basics for cats. Let me introduce myself. I have a few certifications and one I'm currently working on. So I have a cat trainer certification, a dog trainer certification, which I really don't use at this point in time. I am working on a certification through Animal Behavior Institute, and I'll be finishing that in December. I have some Reiki and healing touch for animals in my background. My school background is psychology. I worked at Rancho Coastal Humane Society for 6 years and helped manage the shelter and was the cat intake specialist. I do volunteer my services for 2 rescues here in San Diego. I'm as holistic as I can be as often as possible. And I do that in my practice. And I've got 4 cats, 2 foster cats. These 2 pictured here, you'll see 1, Snowy and Cinders, and a Syrian hamster and 2 fish. And my dream is to have a senior cat sanctuary and boarding facility. Okay. Okay, excellent. I also have membership with the following organizations. The IAABC, Pet Professional Guild and Animal Training Academy. And I wanted to point these out because they help me learn more, continual education. They offer lots of webinars with membership and courses. And if any of you guys are interested, check out the websites here, and I will offer a PDF later so that you'll be able to have all this information. But yeah, all of those bodies are awesome, and I have a commitment through them to positive practices or positive reinforcement whenever possible. So what do I do as a cat behavior specialist and trainer? Well, I work with clients and I work with shelter and rescue cats. I help the cats and the humans to communicate better, and I largely do that through training, but not entirely. Common issues that I work with, common complaints from cat guardians include not using a litter box. That's probably number one. Number two is probably aggression. Also fear and hiding behaviors, destructive behaviors, travel training, going to the vet, moving, etc. Cat-to-cat introductions or cat-to-cat fighting that has just spontaneously shown up. Nighttime wakefulness. And I also help catify the home to help everybody live in harmony. So why do we want to clicker train with cats? Well, it's fun and enriching, of course. It also helps cats bond with people. It helps build trust and confidence from the cat to you, and probably vice versa too, right? It helps prevent boredom with cats, and that in turn relieves depression and anxiety. Everything is connected. It also helps reduce fear and aggression, and it just generally makes your life so much easier because it's just a great way to communicate your desires to your cat. Some rescue and shelter applications: decreasing stress, and then that in turn decreases illness. You can help make a cat more adoptable by teaching eye contact, having them touch a paw to their hand when they're in the kennel, socializing kittens and adults. It can help with getting a cat back into their kennel. A lot of cats will come out and don't want to go back in, and it prevents boredom. And then for medical personnel, it can help with restraint, nail trims, and sanitary shaves, just to name a few. What we're going to talk about today are targeting, come, sit, high five, and stationing. And all of those behaviors can be applied toward other behaviors. They have some really useful applications. Teaching targeting alone, I noted in the poll, several people had taught targeting but not spin. Well, targeting is super easy to teach spin. So there's a lot of interesting things you can do with just those. And I do want to apologize in advance. There's a lot of words on several of these slides, but that is so that when you have this later in PDF form, you can refer back to it easily, since I don't have a separate handout. So this is pretty much as I will say on operant conditioning. We're not going to get into it, but clicker training has its roots in operant conditioning. So if you think back to that time when we learned in school about B.F. Skinner's famous work with rats, that's where clicker training comes from in our work with cats today. So operant conditioning is just a type of learning in which the organism learns through the consequences of its behavior. And it's broken down into reinforcement and punishment, and then positive and negative. Reinforcement strengthens the behavior and punishment weakens the behavior. And then positive is just adding a stimulus, negative is to remove a stimulus. Interesting thing here, and this is another reason, a huge reason why we use clicker training with cats, is because reinforcement is long-lasting learning, and it teaches the cat what to do. So it is that very big communication process, or big on communication. The punishment, if you're using a punishment method with cats, it suppresses the undesired behavior, and it's not going to be long-lasting. It only teaches a cat what not to do. Specifically, and the behavior will return when punishment is removed. So specifically, a lot of people will use a spray bottle to spritz a cat to get off of the counter, but it's not teaching the cat what you want the cat to do. So it's a failure in communication. There is a better way, and that's clicker training. We're not covering that today, and that's honestly one of my least favorite things to cover. So hopefully no one will ask me about it, but and then there's training for enrichment and there's behavioral modification. Today we're talking about training for enrichment, but I do a lot of behavioral modification, and that is troubleshooting behavioral issues with cats. And by using an example of positive reinforcement would be the cat gets a treat and praise every time he scratches a scratching post versus your couch, right? An example of negative reinforcement would be getting up and walking away if a kitten was starting to play attack your leg. That mimics what mama cat would do, and in the absence of mama cat, we act as her surrogate, basically. So we get up and walk away. Just some quick examples. So clicker training for enrichment, it should always be fun. There are no no's in clicker training. Literally, we're gonna avoid saying the word no, and if you are big on telling your cat or dog no, you're gonna have to retrain yourself and step away from that. And then you stop if you and your cat are not having fun at any point in time. That is a big one. You wanna end it on a good note if you can. So it's important to find high value rewards. You wanna determine what motivates your cat the most. What will she or he work for? And these two are my favorites. I love using Churu. Churu tubes are so easy and mess free. And I also love using Feline Natural. This is a cat food and it's freeze dried, and the pieces are so easy to break apart. And when you're working with Feline Natural, you're feeding complete diet. So you're not worried about an imbalance in any kind of thing, since it's not a treat, technically. If you've got multiple cats in your home and you're just starting out and you're trying this for the first time, start with the most food motivated cat first. This cat is going to forgive your mistakes, because you will inevitably have some mistakes. And it's going to be much easier to start with a cat that gets over the mistakes quicker. So that's my best recommendation. And managing your environment is also incredibly important, because if you've got other animals in the home, you either need to have them in a different area of the home, or if you've got a dog, have the dog outside in the yard or on a walk, or, you know, usually it doesn't work to put all the other animals in a room. So just lead the cat that you're going to be training into a separate room and work there. Same goes for kids. Try to do it while they're napping or somewhere else, because they will, you know, want to know what you're doing. And anyways, I don't need to go there, but also think about appliances. If you've just started the dishwasher, avoid that, just because little tiny things can really distract your cat, especially in the beginning. And then also consider your feeding schedule. Free feeding leads to boredom and health issues in general. So, and it also messes with your clicker training, because if your cat is always satisfied throughout the day and grazes whenever he or she wants to, then it's not going to be very motivating, or as motivating when you're sitting down to clicker train. So I recommend 3 or more portion meals per day, and you'll feed at roughly the same time each day, and train when your cat is hungry. So before meal times is ideal. You don't have to train at the same exact time each day, but just when your cat is hungry is the most important time. And then treat delivery methods. I personally use training pouches and wide mouth glass jars. I use the pouches when I'm standing up and moving around, and I use the jars in my lap or behind me when I'm in a seated position. I find that crinkly bags are distracting for the cat. I also don't recommend feeding directly from your hand or finger. That is going to be really distracting. If you're trying to do a behavior that involves using your hands, the cat is going to be trying to sniff or lick your hand. So you could also get bitten if your cat's really into food. A tongue depressor is a great way to deliver gravy type food or treats. Spoon, plate. Are you going to toss the treats? If you've got a gravy tube, are you going to feed right out of the gravy tube? A lot of cats are kind of weird about that, so you might have to feed it off of a tongue depressor, spoon, or on a plate. Using a pet mat or a placemat are really great options for having your cat, like mobile options. So I do that a lot, but ultimately it just comes down to what works best with you and your cat, and if the cat has a preference. So here's the concept with the click. The click serves as a marker, or something that marks the exact moment when the cat does something that you want to see him do more often. Every single time you click, you have to follow it up with the reward. And today we're talking about treats specifically. There are other kinds of rewards. You can use praise, you can use playtime, but food is the best, fastest way in general. So that's my emphasis today. Interchangeably, I will oftentimes use reinforce and reward. So they mean the same thing for our purposes. Keep in mind that click ends the behavior. For example, if you're teaching that the behavior sit, when the cat sits, then the moment the cat's bottom touches the floor, you're gonna click and treat. The cat can now go do whatever the heck he wants to do. If he wants to go get a drink of water or get a bite of food from his bowl, that cat is no longer obligated because you have ended that behavior. And then I do recommend, this is what I was taught from the professional school I learned from, train no more than about 15 minutes for each training session in general. Cats have a shorter attention span than dogs, not to compare them to dogs, but you could train longer with a dog. So less is more with cats. Now we've got 3 different training methods that you can and will use for a lot of different things when training with your cat. Luring, shaping, and capturing. Luring is when you're using your finger, a hand, or a target stick to lure the kitty toward achieving a behavior. And lures need to be faded out as soon as possible once the cat gets a hang of the behavior. We'll discuss that. Shaping is when you reinforce approximations or tiny steps towards achieving a behavior. It can take longer, but it makes the behavior stronger. And I often use luring and shaping together. In capturing, if you're lucky, you'll catch your cat doing something you want or like. Click and treat that each time that cat is offering that behavior. And it's like bonus. It's awesome. Capturing. We'll talk more about that as well. Jackpotting is when you give multiple treats and praise for something. So for example, if you're shaping your cat to walk onto a mat and sit down, and the cat is so far successfully putting its paws onto the mat, and then all of a sudden your cat walks over to the mat and sits down and offers that final behavior you were looking for, you'll want to give a jackpot of treats and praise. As far as clicker types go, mouth click. So I've been using the mouth click a lot more lately, and I've heard people make a sort of clucking noise. Like, I don't like that. That's weird on my tongue. I simply put my tongue behind the top part of my teeth, and I go. Say that again. It's really, really useful when you've got your hands. When your hands are not available to you and you're using both hands to do something with the cat, the mouth click is great. So I like to train both with the mouth click and with the handheld clicker. The Click R by Premier is my clicker of choice. It's got a little loop for the finger. It's not super loud. The I Click by Karen Pryor is pretty good. Tally counter is a creative option you can use. You hang it around your neck and it counts the number of repetitions you've done. A spring-loaded pen is great for cats that are a little scared of the click sound because it's much quieter. And I don't use box clickers, which are those cheapy ones that you can get at Petco. They're kind of loud, and the click is not as succinct as with the rest of these options. So when you gotta charge the clicker by itself, if you've never clicker trained with a cat before, the cat has no idea what this click is all about, what this marker is. So you have to give that clicker meaning, and this is how you do it. You're gonna click and give a treat within 1 second or at the same time. This is just for charging the clicker, not for training other behaviors. So you're gonna click and give within 1 second, as close to it as you can so the cat understands click means a treat is coming. You only want to offer a pea-sized amount because cats can get full easily, and if it takes them too long to eat the treat, their attention is taking longer to orient back to you. So let's see, a click, and there is one exception to click not following a treat. And that is if the cat is doing an unacceptable behavior. So that's not going to happen very often, but I have had times in my training where I've clicked at the exact moment the cat was doing the opposite of what I was trying to train. So for example, I was trying to train be on the ground and the cat jumped onto a table and I clicked on accident. So I did not give a treat at that time. Another example would be if your cat, you know, like tries to bite you or something, don't give a treat. This sounds like common sense, but it's really not. If the cat doesn't get to the treat or see it, like if it rolls under the refrigerator, don't click again, just get a new treat. And then wait until you have your cat's attention each time. If your cat is looking somewhere else, wait to click and treat. Your cat needs to be looking at you or in your general direction. And then this first session for charging the clicker, go up to about 5 minutes, keep it short. You can do a few different charging sessions, and how you'll know that your cat has got the hang of it is that he's looking around for the treat after you click because he's anticipating it. I am going to show you what this looks like. Oh, and you know what I didn't do, Amelia, is I didn't select those options. So I'm gonna go back real fast because that's not gonna, the video isn't gonna work otherwise. And let me try this again. Oh, they were already filled in. Okay, cool. So this should work. Spin around so you're not seeing cat butt. When you have a food motivated cat, this goes fast. And see, I have my clicker, I'm holding my clicker to the side here, and I've got my treats out of sight in my lap, so the cat is not distracted by anything else. There we go, there's charging the clicker. Okay, your first behavior to teach your cat should be target training. Some of you guys have already taught several behaviors. Don't go back and, you don't need to go back and teach it and feel bad, but it should be the first behavior to teach. I think I explained later why, so I'll get to that later. But you can also use target training to charge your clicker if you prefer. And some different target stick types include just a pencil with an eraser at the end. You can get this cool one on Amazon. I don't remember what it's called, sorry. The click stick, I think extends to about 2.5 feet long. This one's a little bit longer. And I love the click stick and is my target of choice because I get to hold my clicker, the click part in one hand, as same hand as the target, less things to hold. You can use your finger, that's called finger targeting. You can make a wooden dowel and put a small foam ball on it, or you can just get creative. And I mentioned earlier, there's loads of applications for target training, but we're using it as a lure to lure the cat into doing other behaviors. But you can also teach meerkat, which is, you know, sit pretty, go to a mat or a bed, carrier training, high five, spin in a circle. You can use this for socializing to a person, great for exercise, and more.
Jamie, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think the just presentation is going into we're seeing 2 slides at once right now. I don't know if you can change your presentation mode to, so it feels
yeah, that's interesting. Okay, let's see. I only want screen 2. Is that working now? Or no?
Yes, we're good now.
Okay, thank you for telling me that.
Yeah.
Okay. So how to target. The goal is that the cat is going to touch the target with his nose only and not a paw. There are some trainers that will do the paw. I don't teach that. I find it much more confusing. You're going to hold the target in one hand and your treats and clicker in the other, or if you've got the click stick, which I do recommend, then just in one hand. You click the instant your cat's nose touches the target, and then you offer a treat. You're going to start with holding the target several inches away from the cat's nose and work your way slowly to a foot, then to a few feet, and then eventually across the room. And this is going to take place over the course of several training sessions. And then normally you add cues at the end, which I will cover, but in the case of targeting, you can start at the beginning and you can say touch or you can say target if you would like to. I don't do that with my own training, but there are a lot of people who do. So here's what this might look like. If the cat puts their paw up and tries to get it, you're going to move the target away. I was okay. I gave her that one because she didn't actually hit the target with her paw. Her paw was just up in the air. Hey, you can use it to spin. Okay. And I will mention that that was Soul. She's part of a bonded pair with Charlie, and they're about 4 years old, hanging out with my friends in foster. If you're interested, you can connect with me. So you got to go at the cat's pace, and slower is better, and that applies to all behaviors. You got to let the cat master each step before moving on to the next one. So if your cat's not getting it, start back a few inches away from the nose and then work your way at an inch at a time. Between repetitions, you got to hold the target out of sight. You can put it to the side behind you in your lap or under your arm. And if you have any issues with getting your cat to touch her nose to the target, try rubbing a bit of treat onto the end or put some gravy for her to lick off. You might have noticed that Soul was licking the target, and that's because I had previously been working with her and she was licking it off. So just do what makes your cat comfortable. So the next behavior we'll talk about is a recall behavior, or come, same thing. You're gonna have your cat's favorite treats ready, and you're gonna start a short distance away from your cat. This one's a really easy one to train. You're gonna call your cat over to you by making whatever noises you usually make to get your cat over to you, whether that's kissing or here kitty, whatever it is. Just don't say your cat's name only, because later your cat might be confused that that's the cue word itself. So you can say like, Snowy, come here kitty, but you just don't want to say Snowy, Snowy, Snowy. If you need to, you're going to shake your bag or treat jar and show the cat the treat in your hand as your lure. And then if your cat comes all the way over to you, click and treat and give praise. If your cat is hesitant and only comes part way, click and treat, and then you're going to use that shaping method to reinforce for tiny baby steps, coming a little closer to you and closer to you after each time you do this. You're going to be raising the bar and challenging your cat to get closer and closer. And then how you reset, we're going to talk a lot about resetting with every single behavior. A reset is you moving away from your cat and calling him over to you again. Or if you're doing this while you're sitting down, then toss the treat away from your cat so that your cat has the opportunity to repeat the behavior, so that he really gets to understand and practice what you're looking for to teach him. So here's the initial steps. I know that was a lot of instructions at once, but here's the first steps.
Lookity! Good girl. Lookity! Lookity! Good girl. Lookity! Good girl. Lookity! Good girl. Come here.
you get the gist, hopefully. She was coming about a foot away from me. I was good with that. And side note, you can also use your target stick, or if you've been finger targeting with your finger, you can use that to get your cat to come all the way over to you and touch your hand or finger or the target stick. So the next step with come is once your cat is reliably and coming to you 8 out of 10 times, you get to add your cue. If your cat is not coming to you quickly or in a timely manner, hold off on training the cue word and wait until you've got that time frame down to your preference and you're rewarding your cat coming to you in a more timely fashion, if that makes sense. To add the cue, you ask your cat to come to you just as you've been doing, and then once she comes over to you, you click and say your cue word at the same time. And I would do this for 2 or 3 sessions so she really gets the hang of it. In my example, my cue word is, or my cue phrase is, come here.
Come here. Good girl. Come here. Good girl. Come here. Good girl. Come here. Good girl.
So then your last step is to test the cue. In a new session, you're going to try calling your cat to you, or you can do this in the same session, that's fine. But you're going to try calling your cat to you by using that cue word or phrase that you've been working on together. And then if the cat comes to you, click treat and give praise. And if she doesn't seem to get it just yet, try going back to the previous step where you continue to pair the cue with the behavior. So here we are testing it out.
Snowy, come here. Good girl. Come here. Good girl. Come here. Good girl. Come here. Good girl.
That last one, she was a little sluggish, but I could work on that with her. So come or recall, you always want to reinforce your cat to coming to you at your request. That is because you want this to stay strong, and there's probably more reasons that I don't remember, but just trust me on it. You also, a lot of people make this mistake. Please never ask your cat to come to you if you're going to be doing something that the cat may not be a fan of. So don't call your cat to come over to get a nail trim if your cat hates getting her nails trimmed. That is going to ruin your recall. Practice often, because a successful recall is super handy to train, especially in emergencies, or if you break something and you want your cat to get away from the broken glass. And it doesn't need to be food every time. You can call your cat over to you to initiate a play session or to get some pets if your cat is reinforced by petting. And then finally, and this is the case with all behaviors you'll train, the goal is to ask the cat, the goal is to give the keyword once and then have your cat come to you. This is a really common mistake people make. If you continue to say, come here, come here, come here, and then you finally reinforce the cat when she eventually feels like coming to you, then you have just taught your cat that you can get away with saying the cue multiple times, and she can get away with waiting whenever she feels like it. So that makes it challenging. So our next behavior, I think this is a super fun and easy one as well, is sit. There's a few different ways to teach this, but I find the most success with this. You wait for your cat to sit. So cats in general, they're big on sitting. Click the moment her bottom touches the floor. Quickly offer the treat by placing it or tossing it just out of her reach, depending on what kind of treat you're using. And that makes her reset the behavior. You'll see what I mean in the video. And then you just continue to repeat after each time the cat sits, repeat, reset, repeat, reset. And then after a few successful training sessions, try adding the keyword sit right as your cat sits. You're going to use a consistent, this is true for all training, use a consistent and upbeat tone of voice when you do your cue word. Don't shout. Cats can hear you unless they're deaf. They can hear you just fine. And then finally you'll test out the cue word by saying sit, and then you'll click and treat if successful. If not, go back to the next step. So let me show you sit. And this one is the one where I'm going to manually click because you won't hear the audio on this. So here we go. This is soul again. Moving it right out of reach, so she has to get up and go to it. And please don't feel bad if the cat you are working with is not as quick to, or doesn't repeat the behaviors as often as the cats I'm showing you. There's a reason I'm showing you these particular cats so that you can see it happen a lot. But these cats I'm working with in the videos are not representative of all cats, that's for sure. Okay, so a little tip with sit is when the cat sits down. Oh, if the cat sits down while eating the treat, which sometimes happens, then that makes it harder to reset. So if the cat happens to like to sit while they're eating, then just wait until she's done eating the treat, and then use a lure, or you can use the treat in your hand to lure her in order to reset, to get up and walk over and reset. And if that method is not working for your cat to sit, try using the method that a lot of dog trainers will use, where you hold a treat over the cat's head just an inch or two, because if you hold it more than an inch or two, the cat's probably going to jump up, but you just want slightly over your cat's head to back into a sit. And then you can use shaping to reward little baby steps towards sitting if you need to, if the cat won't just automatically sit. So next up, high five. And there are several ways to teach this, which is pretty cool. You can capture it. If you have a cat like the long-haired black cat Soul, she loves to paw and pick her paws, and she's very expressive with her paws. You might just be able to catch a cat moving their paw and capture that behavior by marking it and then give a treat. You may not be able to do that depending on the cat. So the thing I use the most is luring, where I put a little bit of treat in my hand, or I make it look like I'm holding a treat, and I put it just a little bit above the cat's head to get their paw to lift up, because a lot of cats will like to, move their paw over to the treat to try to get it. And then you fade, or you can also use a little mousy toy if that's not working, and then you fade out the object or whatever it is that you were using as a lure. And then shaping, which is not the easiest method to use. If the first two, capturing and luring, are not successful, you could use shaping. I have done it before, and that's where you're going with baby steps. So if you've got a cat that just starts to lift their paw, you can click and treat for that. And then, you reward as it goes higher and higher and higher, but you're usually gonna have at least success with luring, if nothing else. So I will show you this with Cinders. Oh, not yet, I guess. Okay, I learned this from experience with one of my kitties. Do not teach this as your very first behavior. If you teach this before you teach targeting, you're probably gonna get a cat like Yeti, my cat, who often tries to move up his paw anytime he doesn't know what if we're trying to train a new behavior and he doesn't know what I'm asking of him, his paw automatically goes up in the air, and that interferes with what I'm trying to train him. Also, if you have a cat whose claws are out and is scratching your hand, which will happen sometimes, try to only reinforce the behaviors where you've got a soft paw. This is a little tricky to do because I know that by experience with one of my cats, but it can be done. And there's no need for a verbal cue with high five unless you want to, because the cue is just putting the hand out. So here is me working with Cinders. using a combination of the lure and, well, yeah, I'm just using luring here. Oops, hang on, it is still muted. So I actually have the treat in my hand. So I actually am using a combination of luring and shaping because she's not all the way there. So I'm still rewarding the baby steps toward it since she's not making contact with my hand yet.
Good girl.
All right. I think this is our last one, and then we'll have a few more slides after this. So stationing is such a fabulous behavior to train and has so many applications. So I train this to all of my cats and any cat that comes through my home. We station on a mat, and you'll see some reasons why that's versatile later. But you can use a stationing behavior to train cat-to-cat introductions because you can say, hey, go over here instead of staring at this other cat. Emergencies, if you break a glass, door dashing, grooming, and confidence around people. Your cat might just prefer a high place, so you can do that to start, and I'm going to show you on a higher place. And so you're going to first pick what your station's going to be. If you're going to do a mat or a cat tower or a stool, the rules are it just needs to be visually obvious and have clear boundaries or edges for your cat, so your cat knows where it's supposed to go. And it's got to be comfortable. If it's unstable or wobbles, that's not going to be a good choice. So what you're going to do is you will invite your cat over to the station, try tapping it or luring by using your finger or a target stick. And when your cat gets onto it, you're going to click treat. And you will continue to click and treat if your cat stays there for a bit to reinforce her for staying on it. Also, if your cat chooses to sit down, be sure to click and treat for that too, because that is going to be a requirement for the stationing behavior in just a little bit here. And then you're going to reset the behavior by tossing a treat onto the floor or luring your cat down from the station. And then you just repeat that. All right, so first steps, just luring her up there.
Here.
She wasn't really responding to the target stick, so I decided to use a churu in my hand. And sit, so that earns her another click treat.
Hey girl. Good job.
Praise is always welcome in Snowy's world.
So good.
Sit.
Good girl.
And now I'm going to reset.
Good job.
And I give her just a little bit of a reward, when I reset, but I don't click when I reset, just a little bit of lick.
Good job. Good girl. Good girl. He's so good. Yeah. Girl. Okay, come on. Good job.
Okay, so here's the next steps. You're going to continue to reinforce your cat for sitting on the station by clicking and continuing to click and treat as your cat sits down when she's up there, and then resetting. If you've already taught your cat to sit on cue, then you might just ask your cat to sit each time she gets up there. That might make things easier for you. And then once your cat is reliably sitting 8 out of 10 times, now you have a new goal to work with. And your new goal is for your cat to jump onto the station, sit, and then you're going to reinforce without you prompting the sit. So without you asking for it, you're just going to wait. So here is what that might look like.
Good girl.
That was a bad throw.
Good girl. Good girl.
One more time and then I'll move on. Okay.
Job.
Lastly, you get to fade the lure and transform it into a cue. So up until now, you've been doing whatever it is that you've been doing to lure your cat over to the station, whether it's kissy noises or using your target stick to lure the cat. And what I recommend is double wrapping on the station to encourage your cat to get up and over to it. And then click treat if your cat does so. If that doesn't work or you don't prefer that, then continue to use the same lure that has been working for you. And then just as your cat sits down on the station, add your cue, whatever that's going to be. So if you do want to do the double wrap, then wait until your cat sits. And as your cat sits, double wrap next to her, and then click treat as she sits. And I do have a slide on how to add cues later. Hopefully that will make more sense. And then you just continue on to work on pairing the cue for the training session and then test it out. And really, as far as cues go, you can use whatever the heck you want as long as it is short and sweet. And a lot of cats will respond better to visual cues. So if you want a visual cue, go for it, or hand signal. So I'm just going to replay this real fast so you can see how I turned my lure in. This is the same video we just saw, but I turned my lure into a double wrap on the object. It was so close to me tapping on it multiple times and then just turning it into just 2 quick taps. She totally knew what I was saying or asking her to do. There you go. Okay. If your station can be picked up and moved, practice moving it around your home and training with your cat in different locations. And that is going to further strengthen your behavior. And then you also may want to work on stay, which is where you would ask your cat to go to the station using your cue. And then once she gets onto it and sits, you can pick whatever word you want, or you can use a hand signal or both. This is really whatever you want to do. I tend to say wait, and you can, put your hand up like this, or some people I think do this. Whatever it is, pick one, or the verbal and the word at the word and the hand signal at the same time if you want to do both. Just keep it consistent. You say, once your cat is up there and in the sit position, you're not going to click and treat yet. You are going to say 1 Savannah silently to yourself. And if your cat is still there, click and give your cat a treat while up on the station. Once your cat has mastered staying there at 1 Savannah, because you can do that multiple times, 1 Savannah, click and give a treat. 1 Savannah, click and give a treat. Then up the ante to 2 Savannahs. 1 Savannah, 2 Savannah, again, silently to yourself, click and give a treat. And so on and so forth. That is how you build duration with the stay. And you can run into some issues with this, and there are some troubleshooting with teaching your cat to stay. And so Naughty No More is a really great book by Marilyn Krieger that goes into some ways to help solidify that behavior. So adding cues, here's the general tip slide. You're going to add your cue after the cat reliably does the behavior 8 out of 10 times. I'm not making this up. This is like a cat trainer thing. It's probably a dog trainer thing too. If you add a cue too soon, that will result in confusion for the cat, and it can end up in giving you what we call an unrefined behavior. Cats often respond better to visual cues, so you could feel free to do a hand signal with every single thing if you want, if you can think up enough cool hand signals to do. So with adding the cue, the step one is you give your cue as your cat completes the behavior. For example, as your cat sits down, you say sit and you click and treat at the same time. And then step two would be to give your cue just before you anticipate your cat is going to offer you the sit behavior or the behavior. And then example, just as your cat is about to sit down, you could, I mean, you'll know oftentimes, you'll be able to see the motions going down, say sit, and then click treat if the cat is successful. And that's why it's really important to have your cat already offering it 8 out of 10 times before you add the cue. Hopefully that makes sense. And then you test it. If your cat is not successfully responding to when you ask your cat to perform the behavior 8 out of 10 times, then you need to go back a step and continue to pair the cue with the behavior. And then again, do not repeat your cue over and over, because when you do this, you're teaching your cat you can wait X amount of times until he feels like doing the behavior, and you want it that first time only. So, okay, those are the behaviors we taught, or I'm teaching you today, but I also want to mention and show you some really cool things. Fear-free handling and grooming are some really amazing things you can teach with clicker training, like touching sensitive parts of the cat's body, like paws, traveling in the car, nail trim, brushing, a sanitary shave for long-haired cats, picking a cat up, vet visit preparation, such as restraint, weighing in, and all different kinds of handling. And I would encourage you to visit fearfreepets.com, because they do offer fear-free certification for professionals. And I believe people who are affiliated or work for, I don't know about volunteer for, but probably also for rescues and shelters. They have lots of really cool free resources. So check that out. And just a little bit about Snowy and Cinders. These guys were found at 2 months old, which is, it makes it much harder to socialize when they're beyond 7 weeks old. And they didn't even have real socialization until about 3 months old. They went to their first foster home at 3 months old. And then at about 5 or 6 months of age, I grabbed them and started working with them daily on socialization training. So you will see some of my progress with them. This video was this week, and I could not touch Cinders or get anywhere near her for the first few months. And this is where we're at today. And what I'm doing here is I'm preparing for pickup, because I want to be able to, I don't need to be able to pick her up and hold her and carry her around the room. I just want to be able to do some basic restraint, and I ultimately want to be able to trim her nails, because she's 10 months old and has never had a nail trim.
Girl.
So I'll show you Snowy. Snowy is just super awesome and easy to work with. And this is me working with her on being able to look at her teeth. And I'm using the mouth click because I'm using both hands. Okay. Oops, I skipped one. Let me go back to that one. This I took this week. I think I took this video 2 days ago. This is a great example of so many cats are so challenging to get on a scale and weigh them, right? It's terrifying to them. But because I mentioned to you, all of my cats are mat trained.
There we go.
All I have to do is put my mat on top of my scale. And that's it.
Okay, let's weigh. Come on, get on. And sit. Can you sit down? Thank you, good girl.
And voila.
6.6.
It makes weighing your cat super helpful and fun for them. Here's a great example of also using the mat with travel training. Because she loves her mat, I can put it wherever I want and work with her there.
Travel.
And she knows that she needs to wait to be released.
Good job.
Click and reset. So there's something called schedules of reinforcement. There are many more that we're not going to talk about today, but while you're training your cat the behavior, while you're in progress with training a new behavior, you are reinforcing your cat 100% of the time. That is called continuous reinforcement. So every single time your cat gets the behavior correct or does something you want to reinforce, you do a click and treat. However, once you have refined your behavior and you've got the finished product and you're like, this is great, my cat is always sitting or almost always sitting on cue, now you're going to move to a variable ratio of reinforcement. And what this means is reinforcement gets delivered after an unpredictable number of responses. So for example, you might click and treat after 1 sit, and then you click and treat after 4 sits, and then click and treat after 2 sits, then click treat after 3 sits, then 6 sits, then 1 sit. So you're treating it like totally randomly, and this is how slot machines work. It's highly reinforcing to people, highly reinforcing to cats as well. And there is one behavior this does not apply to, and that is recall or come. That one needs to have a continuous rate of reinforcement. Not going to get into these, but you're welcome to look these up on your own time. But I just want to mention that every cat learns at a different pace, and learning and behavior is so complex. But there's something called latent learning, and that is where it's a form of learning that's not immediately expressed in an obvious way. One particular cat might take much longer to learn a behavior. I mean, it could take them weeks longer than another cat might to pick up on it. Ultimately, you have to keep in mind that cats are prey animals, and so they need to feel safe before they feel ready to try out a behavior. So you might be trying to get your cat to come to you and work on come reliably for weeks, and then finally your cat starts to really trust the environment and you, and then all of a sudden just bam, 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 cat is repeating it correctly. And then cats are also observational learners. They learn by example. And they learn pretty well by watching and listening to other cats, animals, and people. So for example, if you're giving one cat a food puzzle, the other cat might figure it out by watching. Cats will watch you use a door handle, for example, like a French doorknob, and figure out how to get out. So it's a good example of observational learning. And then once you have a behavior down pat, so let's say it's stay or sit stay, then you're going to work on each one of these one at a time to help really proof the behavior and solidify it. So you'll work on your distance, how far away can you walk away from your cat while she stays seated. You'll work on duration, how long will your cat stay there, and distraction. Low-level distractions are really useful. So for example, I do most of my training, or a lot of my training, here in my office, but I need to sometimes do training with, out in the main area, and, my partner might be walking around, and that's a distraction. But it's really helpful to train while you're doing one distraction at a time so you can control it. So just having one person walk around while you're training, or the TV on while you're training, and that's going to really help your cat to perform the behavior under a variety of circumstances. Please never toilet train a cat. We're on our please nevers because it's so unnatural to cats. If anyone ever asks me, how do I toilet train a cat? I tell them all the reasons why you shouldn't. I don't know a single behavior consultant that is cool with it, or veterinarians say don't do it. So there's a whole host of reasons not to do it. It's not natural. They don't get to dig. They might fall in. It's hard on the cat's body. And then never train a cat to do anything that is painful, dangerous, or causes the cat physical discomfort. There's something called flooding. So this is going to come into play probably more so with behavioral modification. So training a cat for a behavioral reason. For example, let's say you're trying to touch the cat, like when I was trying to touch these kitties. If I move too fast, that's called flooding, and then it would backfire on me. And so when I'm socializing them, if I jump a step that they're uncomfortable with, it ended up setting me back. And, you know, I didn't do anything like that intentionally, but it's hard, you know, I was brand new to training with feral kittens. But one thing I will say is, and I would never done with any cat, is I don't recommend wrapping a kitten in a towel and force touching the cat or the hissy scared kitten. That is called flooding. You're causing a ton of adrenaline to go through their body. You can use clicker training instead, and it is a much nicer, longer lasting technique to use that will not backfire. So I threw this slide in because this goes with, you know, training cats for behavioral reasons and why people contact me all the time. So why do cats misbehave? And air quotes on that. Why do cats misbehave? Well, firstly, anthropomorphism. Humans expect cats to behave as humans do. We're all guilty of it, right? Also, a big one is boredom. Cats need activities when they're captive, meaning they're indoors. And I'm not saying throw your cat outdoors, because I believe in indoor cats as much as possible here in San Diego, where there's a lot of dangers. But they need things to do. They might misbehave because of anxiety, change in routine, new person, animal. If you have a new scent in the home, cats are very sensitive to scents and sounds. They might be defending their territory against a real or perceived threat. Pretty much no one. I don't think I've ever had a client that had a sufficient amount of resources in their home: food, water, litter boxes, hiding spaces, perching, resting areas, scratchers. So that's a huge one. Cats will quote unquote misbehave because they don't have enough stuff of their own. And if they're not hunting, then you need to create that for them. Cats outdoors hunt 10 to 20 times a day. If they're sedentary all day and eating their food from a bowl, they're bored. So puzzle activity feeders, and I highly encourage you to check out the How to Feed a Cat at catvets.com. American Association of Feline Practitioners a couple years ago put out a publication on how to feed your cats that better meets their needs. Here's a few books to help you with clicker training. I think Naughty No More is great. Karen Pryor's book is good as well. I recently discovered Brain Games, which is a really cool way of enriching your cat by using training. I don't think she specifically talks about clicker training, but you can use the clicker training. And then Cat Training in 10 Minutes is another book. And then that's it. We're at the point where you guys can ask questions. If you've got Instagram, please follow me. Just because I do training and on Facebook, but on Instagram, I do training videos pretty much daily, and you can always interact with me and see what I'm up to. So there we go. All right, I will stop sharing for now, and if we need to go back to one of these slides, we can do that.
Are there any questions? If you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A.
I see some questions already in the chat. So if you want your question answered, if you could repeat it in the Q&A, that would be fabulous. Let's see. I'll go ahead and answer this one from Rebecca. Would stationing be a way to train a cat to sit on a lap? I love that you asked this. And yes, totally. It's so funny because I was just speaking with a cat foster 2 days ago, and she had a concern that her cat wasn't cuddly enough and wasn't sitting on her lap enough. And my answer to that was, okay, you got to let a cat be a cat. However, you can definitely train a cat to want to be where you want the cat to be, as long as they are comfortable there. So if a cat is terrified of your lap, I mean, you're going to have to go slow and work with that. But if your cat, is already coming up near you or next to you, then yes, definitely start to, what I would do for that is I would probably start to use a lure first. So I'd probably use my finger or just the target stick. And actually, I think I can, let me, it's weird, my screen went blank. I have a little video that I can bring up and show for this, if I can find it real fast. Okay, here we go. Let me find it. Because I was working with this with Snowy a few weeks ago. Haha, here we go. So let me share my screen again. Okay, so this is my Instagram. I've just got it up on my computer. Come here. Luring her up there. And I guess I'm not, oh yeah, I am. I used a mouth click so you couldn't really hear it. And then I'm reinforcing her with petting. But literally, she had never, ever, ever tried to get onto my lap, and I had to coach her to do it. So I'm just positively reinforcing her and rewarding approximations by using shaping, getting her to, move toward the ultimate goal of getting all 4 of her paws onto my lap. And then once she was successful for that, I was reinforcing her for sitting down and then laying down and then staying for longer and longer periods. And ultimately, she got to choose any time she wanted to get off, because that's what clicker training does, is it empowers the cat to be able to decide when they want to disengage and stop training. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, we have 2 more questions in the Q&A.
Cool. Do you mind reading? Oh wait, here we go. I can pop it open.
You want me to read it to you?
No, it's okay. I see it now. How do we train a cat not to do something? Is this a matter of redirection? So this comes into play with behavioral modification. We can think of it as training a cat to not do something, but really the way the cat is going to be viewing it is training the cat to do something. So it's more of a matter of, what's the word I want to look for? Training an incompatible behavior. So if your cat, I'm going to use door dashing as an example. If your cat is consistently trying to escape out of your door, then you can train a stationing behavior and put a cat tower next to your door. I did this with my neighbors a few years ago. Their cats were always getting out. And when I pet sat, I moved their cat tower next to the door, and I started to station with them and train them to go onto the cat tower whenever I would open and close the door. And so now they only escape, they escape like 95% less now. So that would be training an incompatible behavior against getting out of the door. So hopefully that makes sense. Is it realistic to train cats to wear a harness and leash? It is totally realistic to train a percentage of cats to wear a harness and leash. And it also depends on what your goal is. So I think it is not realistic to train this with a feral cat. It is not realistic to train this with a cat that is under-socialized and still fearful of different kinds of handling. You need to work with that. It is not realistic to train a cat who is very sound sensitive and is very scared of outdoor noises or movements. It is realistic to train a cat that's a little bit more confident, or if your goal is to go out on your patio or in your backyard and you're going to be doing a leash and harness, it's totally realistic in that way. It's also completely realistic as long as you can safely handle your cat and you're going to start out always training in your home. Then a great reason for harness training is just to be in the carrier for safety. So I have a client that I'm working with him right now on harness training with his cats, not for the purpose of going outside, but for the purpose of being able to fly them over to India. And in the airport, they need to be able to be safely tethered. So when they're getting scanned through security check, through TSA. Hopefully that kind of answers that. It's not for every cat, but it's for a good handful of cats. Okay, so we've got, where are these popping up? I feel like some of the questions went away. Am I crazy? I thought I just saw some.
As you answer them, I'm moving them over to answer.
Oh, okay, thanks. That's helpful. As far as in cat-to-cat introductions from Lolita, this one is not something I can answer simply today, but you could certainly use certainly use clicker training to you would independently clicker train with each cat. So charge the clicker while they're completely separately from each other, behind closed door from each other. And then you can positively reinforce the cat for watching you, and you can use the cue word watch me. You can positively reinforce, you can click treat for looking away from each other. So if you've got one cat or both cats are consistently staring at each other, which is a big no-no and makes introductions difficult, you can positively reinforce them for looking away or for, again, watch me. And you can also do stationing. So if you are already in the introduction process where they're already out together and loose, but one cat just, let's say you've got a kitten and you've got an older cat, which is not a great combination in general, but if you've got a kitten that just really wants to play with the older cat, then you can teach a stationing behavior and you can say, go to your mat when you see that kitten get the urge, or you just know, you can tell when they're about to go chase. And so you can say, go to your mat, which is a, incompatible behavior to chasing. And then you can, once the cat goes to the mat, then you can reinforce with, let's say, a play session, and then engage in a play session. So that was just a few ideas for you. My cat knocks, oh yes. So my cat knocks my water bottle off the kitchen counter. What's the best way to, I knew someone would ask a counter question. So I have to say that you have to, whenever your cat is up on a counter, the first thing to ask yourself is, why is my cat up on the counter? And there could be a few different answers to that. Is your cat, is there a really excellent window up there by your counter and your cat really likes the window? Is your cat seeking food? Is your cat seeking attention and your cat wants to be closer up to your level? Does your cat not have adequate perching and resting areas and vertical space to get up to? Because if your cat doesn't have cat towers around, then it's kind of like a, oh, well, duh, my cat's getting on the counter because the cat needs to be up high. It's instinctual to cats. So this is a really tricky one. It's nightstand, I'm sorry. But I guess it applies as well. So water bottle on your nightstand. What I will tell you with this, because there is a really cool Jackson Galaxy video that just came out and he addressed the whole water bottle or the whole cup thing. So I would encourage you to go to YouTube and look at the videos that he's done in the last couple of weeks. I think this one came out maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe 1 week ago, and he addresses this specific question of not knocking over water, or he's talking about drinking from water, but you can kind of apply it to not knocking it over. So Jackson Galaxy on his YouTube channel. Okay, so I'm not going to get into that too much, but that's kind of like a tricky one. Kitchen counter. Okay, so let's go back to the kitchen counter. I personally kind of hate this one because I don't care. If my cat's getting on my kitchen counter, I don't care as long as there's not food out and as long as I'm not cooking and as long as I'm not preparing their food. The rest of the time, it's like, dude, cats are going to be cats. It's really hard to train them to not be on the kitchen counter. And so I personally my advice is don't drive yourself crazy. What I do to keep my very food motivated cat off the kitchen counter when I don't want him up there is I give him a food puzzle and I put him in a different room and I close the door. And so it's not a punishment for him. He's super happy to go do a food puzzle elsewhere. And then I can cook my meals and prepare the food, and then he's not in my way. You still, you have to look at, again, the reasons why the cat is going up there in order to address all of them. And you want to train an incompatible behavior. So I would train stationing, either put a little cat tower next to your kitchen area or a stool, drag a stool over. I actually have those silicone mats that I use. I have a silicone mat next to my refrigerator on my kitchen counter. And that way, if I do find, Yeti is the cat that does this. If I do find that Yeti is wandering around and I don't have food out, but I just want to practice with him to go to stop, you know, putting his dirty paw prints everywhere. I train with him and I say, go to your mat. And then he goes to his mat more often than not. And then he sits and then I get to train with him up there. It does not work for me with him. It just doesn't work for him to stay off the counter entirely. I'd have to resort to something that I don't believe is right for cats, that would scare him or something. So I just don't do anything like that. So my general advice is just kind of get over it and just manage it as best you can by keeping everything clean and, you know, put your cat away somewhere else when you really don't want them in the kitchen. And then I don't know what this question is. Was this from the same person? Oh, without saying no or using a spray bottle. Got it. Okay, yeah. And thank you for mentioning the spray bottle, because the spray bottle is, it's not something that I recommend doing pretty much ever, because if we go back to when I mentioned about punishment, if the cat sees you spray him, then your relationship with your cat is going to suffer because the cat knows it's coming from you. And the whole training your cat to not go to a specific area that looks like a cat playground, like a countertop in a kitchen, it's like, I mean, I think just literally the best way to keep your cat off of it, in my opinion, is to block off the kitchen entirely if you've got a way of doing that. Otherwise, it's like trying to tell your kids or I'm trying to think of an example. I feel like it's trying to tell your kids that they're not allowed to go into a room with presents and the door's not locked, you know, it's like, or there's no door. That would be so hard for them. It's so tempting. So we really have to moderate and manage, you know, what is doable for our cats. So this question is, can rehomed cats suffer from PTSD, which makes them fearful of life? Yes. And it's interesting that you said PTSD, because I think, I don't know if it's the same term with cats. I don't get asked that very often, so I'm not 100% sure, but the word, I would say yes, because the word I just tend to use is trauma, and cats can definitely, trauma can sit with them for a long time, and I especially learned this through the Healing Touch for Animals courses that I've taken, is same as with people, and trauma gets trapped in our bodies at a cellular level, and then we have to release it. And if it's not released, and I mentioned I'm very holistic, if it's not released with like flower essences or homeopathy or energy healing, then it stays stuck, and so you can have some issues. So I'm a big believer in the energy, moving the energy around, but you can definitely use clicker training to help them get out of fearful. If you've got a severely traumatized cat, and then what you might be up against is that cat won't respond to food because they're too scared. And there are ways to work around that. So if you've got that situation, please feel free to reach out to me personally. And I always offer 15-minute phone calls, free phone calls to people who are interested in my services. Or if you just want some guidance, I'll always, send you towards some resources. But yeah, the answer to that is definitely, yes, to trauma in general. Yes, this is such a common question. How do I get my kitten to stop biting my feet? I know he wants to play. There's a couple of general answers. So the first thing to look at is, number one, are you reinforcing the behavior in any way? Because a lot of people would initially say, oh no, I'm not reinforcing that. But you really need to think to yourself and watch your behavior. And if anyone else in the house lives with you, you need to make sure that nobody is wiggling their foot as their kitten tries to play attack their foot, because if you are, you're making it fun. It's moving around like prey, and that is reinforcing for the kitty. So that's number one, is to stop that. Number two is to redirect to an appropriate outlet, which is playtime. Cats, when they're kittens specifically, when they are not eating or napping, they're playing, or they're getting into trouble because they have loads of energy, and that's what they do. And so the feet is an easy target, but what you need to do is keep your feet really still, and you want to anticipate the times when your cat or kitten is going to attack your feet. Stay still. You can try saying ouch. You don't need to say it in a shouting way because your cat can hear you, but I tend to just go like ow, ow, and see if the cat responds. Sometimes they don't, and oftentimes they don't respond to that super well. But once you've stayed still and once the cat has stopped, then you need to have wand toys all throughout your house so that you can then engage in a play session and redirect that energy and just play, 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 play. Do some clicker training. That's going to help exhaust your cat. If you run, and I've worked with some people, and I've heard many times where the cat is incessant and people are getting really scratched up, and no matter what they try, it's not getting better. Consider getting another buddy about the same age for your kitten and give them a friend, because kittens really shouldn't be alone if at all possible. There's so many destructive and emotional problems that kittens will end up getting into if they don't have a friend. Okay.
All right, so should we do our poll for future?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
So we have another poll of other topics. So if you want to answer just what other topics you're interested in seeing Jamie talk about in the future, we'll schedule it in for next year. So I'll leave it open for 30 more seconds and then we will close. And then I'm going to put my email in the chat. So if your question wasn't answered today, or if you thought of something and just didn't get an opportunity to ask it, you can send me an email with your question. If you can send it by noon tomorrow, and then I can get it to Jamie, and then we can get your answer to you.
And my Instagram name is simply @CatHappyConsulting, or just, it's Cat Happy Consulting. There are no hyphens or anything like that.
All right, so it looks like the most popular topic for a lecture would be nail trims and things related to that. Getting into a carrier is also something people are interested in. And then destructive or scratching behaviors followed by socializing cats or kittens.
Okay.
If there was another topic, feel free to drop it in the chat, or you can email that to me.
Yeah,
as
or
well.
email it, because there's definitely, I would love to do an introduction to behavior modification that will not only cover clicker training, ways to work with it, but we'll also just cover how do we set up your cat in your home for success and routine. So that'd be cool.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We hope you learned something new, and we're so thankful that you were all able to attend.
Yay! Thank you guys, and thank you for all of your thank yous. I appreciate it.
All right,
okay, awesome. And then just a reminder, I'll send Amelia my PDF so that you'll then email it to all of the attendees, right?
Yes, I'll send the PDF of the PowerPoint. I will send the link to the recording, and then I'll send just some of the San Diego Humane Society events that are coming up. So if you're interested in continuing to learn with us, we've got lots of great stuff around the corner.
And then if anyone, I'm not to detract from the Humane Societies, there's lots of amazing cats available for adoption there, but if you were interested in either of the bonded pairs, just contact me directly and I'll give you more info. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.